this area in Valesburg, it was called, the section was called Valesburg. These were wooden tenement houses, 3-4 stories high, with big backyards. And I was sent out to play in the backyard. I remember being given oranges. They go out and play, and the orange was my lunch. I would eat the whole orange down to the skin. I still remember eating the orange skin because it tasted so good. And we stayed there for a couple of years. And my father was a very enterprising man. He wasn't only just satisfied with this. He got that truck and he started to drive, but he couldn't drive. He collided. He ruined the truck, broke his legs. I remember him lying on the porch with his legs cast. Well, of course, it gets better. He got better and hired a black man named Albert. And Albert became part of our lives for the rest of my life. And his wife, Mary, became part of our lives because my mother hired her to take care of the house while she worked. So Albert was on the truck, Mary was in the kitchen, and Albert, my father, worked all night long. I never saw my father because he would work all night. He'd go to the market, deliver the goods all night long, so the stores would open up with fresh produce. And one night, he gave me a treat. He woke me up and took me down to this farmer's market to see how he worked. And there's a German festival called Purgesnacht. It's the Night of the Demons. Are you familiar with this particular ceremony? It's like Halloween when all the witches come out and all the demons come out and fires are lit and drums clang. Well, that's what the farmer's market was like. It was cold, so people had fires, open fires, and fires, pits all throughout the place to keep warm. And trucks were roaring and horns were pounding and people were cursing and big brawny men were carrying these huge boxes of produce and fruits and throwing them on the trucks. And my father was there with them and Albert was there with them. And I was watching all this thing. I said, this is not for me. I'm not going to do this, but my brother liked it. My brother started off as an accountant and almost finished his degree, and 1 year short he quit, got married, and went into the business himself. He wanted to do that. After a few years in Valesburg, when I got finished with the orange skins, my father had decided to invest money, and somebody wanted a mortgage on a home. And my father had some extra cash and gave him a mortgage, and the man defaulted, as is happening all over now. What to do? My father had to take over the house, so we left Valesburg at the age of 5, 6. We moved into 36 Ross Street, where Dee Dee drove us, remember? And the house is still there, and a very lovely colored couple lives there, and they invited us, and the house was still there. Now, this street was next to what was then the Bamberger estate. Bamberger had this huge department store, similar to Macy's. The classic multi-story, multifactorial store. It was very successful. And this estate was well known. It was a marvelous place to live next to. Right now, it's become the East Orange VA. They took over the land, they knocked down the house, and built a VA hospital there. But that's where I spent about 5 years. I began my grammar school there. And it was a nice little street. It was full of little one-family houses. They were all immigrant families. There were Swiss people, German people, French people. And one Swiss person I remember was addicted to toy trains, and he would let us into a cellar, and he had a whole network of little toy trains going through mountain passes, over bridges, and we would sit there and watch these trains go, and he was having a wonderful time pressing buttons. And I started grammar school there. This street had a wonderful hill right next to it that in the wintertime became a great place for sleigh riding. You saw that street and I showed it to you, and we had snow then. And the only problem was at the bottom of the street was this nest of Italian immigrants. They were all Sicilian or Neapolitan, and they were very, very rough, tough people. And there were only 2 Jewish families in East Arkansas. We were one of 2 Jewish families. And these people made very threatening gestures on me on holidays like Easter or Christmas. They would make it well known that they didn't like Jewish people, and I would be sure to hurry home as quick as I could. The school system was nice. We all went there, the lovely grammar school. They had a wonderful ritual at the end of the school year. We all had a picnic in East Orange Park, which is a lovely park. And we had to bring little toy wagons with us and put our lunches and our drinks on there. And the whole class would go pulling our wagons down the street. Which my parents did not want to give me. They had given me a tricycle before, but not a BB gun. So you don't remember it. There was a magazine called the Saturday Evening Post.
Sure.
You know? It's not on the stands now. Well, they hired little boys like me to go door to door selling them. And they give us a commission, a nickel every time we sold a magazine. So I sold enough Saturday Evening Post to buy my own BB gun. And there wasn't a garage window in the neighborhood that was safe. What do? You shoot the target. Well, the area was nice. Everything about it was good, but my siblings were growing up, and my brother became very fond of a Gentile girl who lived across the street. And my parents got very, very frightened. So one thing they didn't want was a mixed marriage. So out went East Orange. They moved as quickly as they could into the Jewish section, the North called the Weequahic section. And we went there. It's 122 Hansbury Avenue, remember that? Just a few blocks from Weequahic Park. And that was a lovely area too. This is the area that Philip Roth wrote about. There I learned how to ride my first 2-wheeler. I taught myself because my brother didn't teach me. My father was always asleep in the daytime. He couldn't teach me. So I taught myself how to ride a 2-wheeler. And we had this lovely park which in the winter froze at the ice skate. Had a track follow on this thing. They had trotters every Sunday, a trotting race. Where was that? Weequahic Park. They had trotters there.
You joined your sync cup?
It was very good. First I went to a wonderful grammar school called Maple Avenue Grammar School. And part of the Jersey school system was to give every student an instrument. You had to have some instrument. So I got my first violin lesson. What other choices a Jewish boy has? So I got my first violin and learned how to play. And our local synagogue, we were Orthodox. There was a town next to us called Hillside. Hillside is still there. And this temple called B'nai Israel was the place I was bar mitzvahed at. And my father, being Orthodox, wasn't supposed to ride, but we had a little trick about driving the car to with one block of the temple on Rosh Hashanah, and he would leave the car and walk the one block into temple.
She's in there. She's in there.
My bar mitzvah was in our house. In those days, they didn't have those big affairs they have then. We had the family over, a couple friends, and besides my bar mitzvah speech at the Torah, I had to play a violin concert with people.
Aww.
I still remember sawing away, playing violin for all the people while they gave me their usual watches or penknives or whatever it was. From there, I went to the famous school, Weequahic High School, that Philip Roth also wrote about, where Swede Mason, who was in one of the characters in this book, was in my class. And what made Swede Mason famous was he was the first Jewish football player in the school's history to make any reputation. He became a all-city football player because he was so agile and strong. We played basketball there. He made this reputation for himself that Philip Roth assumed and took on his own term, because the Swede Mason he wrote about was not the one we know, but Swede Mason's name was famous. Well,
Phil Roth was my age.
what's that?
Phil Roth was my age.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So
He wasn't lying, he was using writer's privilege.
No, she
no,
said
he was my age because the girlfriend, when I was living in Morristown, I was friendly with his cousin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's 75 now.
Yeah.
What?
That's
He's
terrible.
fine.
20 years older than you.
He's 80.
That's it.
He's 80. He just had his 80th birthday.
In Weequahic, had my first fraternity. They had a little Jewish fraternity, my first experience then, and had my first ping pong table, and we had my birthday parties were usually ping pong fest. Everybody would come over, play ping pong, drink soda, and eat some food, and play ping pong till we were cross-eyed. And, it was very, very pleasant. We were just getting to know girls, but we didn't. I started to date, and I had my first girlfriend in my life in Weequahic High School. Then I applied to colleges, and I got into Northwestern. I thought that was where I was going to be, and I had applied to Cornell just in the hope I would get into an Ivy League school. And I was the first member of Weequahic High School to get into Cornell. They had never admitted one before. Why? Because of anti-Semitism, of course. But somehow I broke the barrier there. And Cornell was an interesting experience. I joined a fraternity there. And everything there is symbols. I was in the ROTC, Reserve Officers Training Corps. The Cornell was a land-grant college, and I had to have an Army training program. And they had horse-drawn artillery. They used World War I guns, French 75s they called, 75 millimeter shell. And these were guns from World War I. This is World War II we're talking about now. And caissons were little trucks that were filled with shells that were drawn by horses. So the horses drew the guns and the horses drew the caisson. The very good riders were scouts that were sent out ahead to make sure that there was safety travel. I was a scout. I got my own horse. I learned how to ride. All these other schmendricks, they were pulling the guns, they were pulling the caissons, and I was trotting along, just like my father did with my own